Well, I found that 10 years working in the Hampshire Chronicle newsroom, which is the paper that I worked at, was an invaluable lesson and grounding before I went into politics full time. It gave me a good idea of what journalists want from politicians in terms of the soundbite, the story, and the story that's going to sell the papers, get people listening to the radio stations, get people tuning into that TV station. So that was very useful indeed. Also, I got to see a lot of do's and a lot of don'ts. I got to see quite a lot of politicians who I thought were very impressive, and I thought if I could be half as good as that, if I did this full time, I'd be impressed. And there were an awful lot of politicians I also came across when I thought, to be frank, I don't think they can run a bath, much less what they are currently trying to do. And that was a very valuable lesson, and I've tried to harvest the good bits and avoid the bad bits when I went into local government myself. I won't pretend for a moment that I'm expert at it or brilliant at it. You just try and learn from experience and do the best job that you possibly can. And in some ways, I've spoke to local councillors, but also spoke to some of the national politicians as well. I interviewed Theresa May back in 2010 on the steps of Winchester Cathedral. We got a few minutes together. It was the launch of the general election campaign 2010, and back then she was the Shadow Home Secretary. And she was very slick, very professional, answered all of the questions, but there was no real emotional connect there. I felt a little bit like I was talking to a computer in some regards. And I remember also interviewing Nick Clegg, and he waffled on and on and on when I spoke to him at Sparshot College. That would have been 2009. And he was very good on the presentation, but he doesn't come across, or it didn't come across so well in my shorthand notes afterwards, because I'd ask him a question, he'd start to answer it, and then move on to something else that he wanted to talk about. Never really got to the point, but that was just my experience of interviewing him. I also got the first interview with Mark Oaten, the Winchester MP, who, as I say, then stood down in 2010 after a tabloid scandal. And I suppose my journalism claim to fame is that I got the first interview with him after that news story broke. And the Chronicle got NewsQuest Scoop of the Year for that back in 2006. So, as I say, probably my finest hour as a journalist. I remember there being a whole lot of TV trucks lined up outside the Chronicle office on the day that we broke the story, and I thought, well, my career's not going to be the same again after this one. And as I say, I think that certainly the whole Oaten episode, I think is one that I'd very firmly file in the don't category in terms of what a politician should do rather than the do's. But the thing is, apart from that, my experience of dealing with him is that he was quite hard working and quite good at giving newspaper reporters what they wanted in terms of stories. So in one politician you had a good example of all the things you should be doing, and then one example of what you should avoid. Right, I'm Councillor Warwick Payne, and I'm the Labour Councillor for Woolston and Weston, and I'm also the Deputy Leader of Southampton City Council and Cabinet Member for Housing and Adult Care.